PrepareForChange.net is owned and managed by a worldwide community of volunteer lightworkers who come together to guide humanity through its planetary transition, the event. PrepareForChange.net sets the example by working for the greater good and was created at the request of the resistance movement. If you are moved to help us help the world, why not join us today? Prepare for Change brings truth so that we may change our ways into the path of grace instead of the path of slavery and destruction. Once we know, we can prepare ourselves for change and remember how to allow God's co-creative mind to assist us in making the best choices for all. Else, we will simply suffer the consequences of our inaction or unbalanced action, which is the result of ignorance. Confronting hard truths and being in service to others is the path we all benefit from. Our planet gives to us every single moment. Now it's time to give back to her. Come visit Prepare for Change to discover much, much more than you've been taught by the corrupt establishment, hell-bent on preying on your ignorance. Together, we can be the change we want to see in the world.
Today, Prepare for Change has been at the Portal to Ascension Conference in Irvine, California. We've had many incredible speakers that are presenting, and PFC is pleased to be working in conjunction with Portal to Ascension. We will be doing a collaboration and releasing some videos jointly on both platforms. Right now, we're very, very pleased to be speaking to JJ and Desiree Hurtak.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Very quickly, I'm going to make it sort of brief, so if there's something I missed that's important, you please fill it in. JJ is founder and president of the Academy for Future Science, an international NGO. He's a social scientist, a futurist, has experience in remote sensing, and space law specialist, author of 20 books, and bestseller of Keys of Enoch. Desiree, I am remiss in some of my research there. You're an assistant as well, and you've been partnered, and you work in the same
Right,
field.
I'm a founder of the Academy for Future Science as well, and we've co-authored many books together. We do music, we do DVDs. So
And you have a doctorate degree from New York University school, and also your master's in Syracuse University.
And he has two PhDs, one from right here, UC Irvine. That's where his PhD is from. So
That's fantastic.
We're happy to be back here.
All right, well, we're happy to have you. So let's get into that. What's interesting is there's a little bit of symbiosis between Prepare for Change, in the name itself, the idea of taking awareness, taking consciousness, and taking the best of humanity and going forward. We're in an age of a paradigm shift. Do you see this as a paradigm shift?
I definitely see it as a paradigm shift. I think going back to the 1970s, where I was selected by Robert Hutchins, who was president of the University of Chicago, and was the founder of a think tank called the Center for Democratic Institutions in Santa Barbara, I had the opportunity to see firsthand some of the great social scientists and economists of that era, the early 70s, who saw a general trend that would not really look at the world problems that we face as humanity if science wasn't balanced by consciousness development. And so our work with the Academy for Future Science was to define a program where we would emphasize consciousness in the role of new science that was human-oriented rather than object-oriented.
Is that somewhat the definition of social science?
Social science is really looking at the needs of humanity from a wide variety of disciplines, from the standpoint of sociology and linguistics to economics, mathematics, and what we would call the general recipe of futurism. My wife Desiree and I decided to, shall we say, look at a different direction, different roadmap from the standpoint of consciousness itself. And so we have had the opportunity to work with some of the foremost thinkers of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, including two colleagues at the Stanford Research Institute, Northern California, the publication of this book that came out recently called Mind Dynamics in Space and Time. This book basically looks at 20 years of research that was funded by government agencies, looking at the possibilities that the mind is a transducer or an energy, shall we say, amplifier of certain modalities through which other areas of information can be acquired.
Right, so it basically looks at remote viewing, which is something that was pioneered in the 1970s at Stanford Research Institute. But in actuality, what it is that you could see from a distance, even though you're sitting in this room, something that's going on in China or in Florida or anywhere.
Without technology.
And they were so good that they actually could read the name of top secret file cabinets, from a distance. So
Under the auspices of NSA, National Security.
I was going to say that. So that was sort of like a Department of Defense type of initiative. Would that have at that time fallen under DARPA?
It would have some relationship with DARPA, but not exclusively.
actually, they read this place. It was almost initially when they started doing this for the U.S., there was just a coordinate given, and this is oftentimes, it's just a northeast-southwest coordinate.
Coordinate of latitude and longitude.
Yes. And in actuality, it was supposed to be just a log cabin, but over the hillside was this major NSA
listening post.
Yeah, tracking station. And so they read inside, that's what they thought they were supposed to be remote viewing. They read the top secret files, and that gave them the money. This is in a film from Russell Tarr called Third Eye Spies, which I recommend for everybody. But in actuality, what does this mean? And that's really where we come in. Because if you're going to prepare for change, you have to realize we're evolving as well. And animals can do this.
So what is the core of change?
Yeah. Your cat and your dog can actually seem to sense you coming even before you get home, just without even hearing you.
I've always wondered that. My wife is a vet tech, and we always make that comment. The other one that I've noticed, that was early on, was the work of Schomburg, that studied sort of vortexes and watched salmon kind of projected themselves sort of upstream. How do they do that?
It was actually the work also of my late colleague, Andre Puharich, who was a consultant with the U.S. Army, who recognized that every year salmon would make their way back to their
how did they do that?
breeding ground was probably through some type of magnetic signal process that was, should we say, connected with the very process of fertility.
But the dog, we used to live in Long Beach, and this guy was a chiropractor we used to live with, and you could never tell. He could have 4 extra clients or come home early. Yeah. The dog, 15 to 20 minutes before he came home, and you could not have heard, I don't even care with dog's ears, you could not hear in Long Beach this car coming. The dog would stand up and go to the window, and Rupert Sheldrake has confirmed this as well. So what we're saying is the animals have it, and we think, in a certain sense, other intelligences out there, like ETs, which is something that people have talked about. They seem to communicate by this way, and we have that ability. And so when we're preparing for change, we should prepare for our own advancement to use these techniques. And we feel you can use them for many things, like healing, knowing where you lost your keys,
communication at distant locations.
So do we call that a consciousness? And is that sort of examining the quantum? Is that space and time?
Quantum consciousness would be a term. Quantum consciousness.
Entanglement, non-locality.
There are various metaphors for it, and the scientific vocabulary has yet to be fully developed. But what we're saying is the work represents the X-Files of showing mind over matter does work. The realization that government scientists on the highest of levels, with the best facilities, laboratories, and measurement tools, have shown that the missing part of evolution is human consciousness and its potential. And this is what we've zeroed in on. We've recognized that we can entertain a lot of possibilities, but the structures of the old paradigms of scientific measurement missed, should we say, the recognition that part of our human anatomy works multidimensionally. And the greatest discovery that has been made really since the discovery of relativity, in our estimation, has been that we are multidimensional beings. We are also non-local beings in the sense that we are here in the physical dimension of our body and mind, but we are also in a transphysical or paraphysical dimension of being beyond our body and mind, in terms of a global mind.
Right. So Elizabeth Rauscher, who we co-wrote this book with, she did a paper with Russell Tarr that showed, when we're talking about remote viewing, many people think, okay, so I'm sitting here in California and I'm going to remote view New Orleans or something like that. So I would send a signal to New Orleans, see what's there, and receive it back. That's not how they figured it works. But from their research, it's non-local. you are there. And that's why even certain coordinates are unique scenarios. The mind of the remote viewer, especially the very talented ones, is there. They can see it. And actually, one of the things is Ingo Swann, one of the famous ones, remote viewed Jupiter and Saturn. So
before NASA got there, he was able to discern that Jupiter had a ring around its planets. It also had conditions that he described with great detail.
Of the atmosphere and everything like that.
Again, the bottom line is our scientists have shown mind over matter does work. The question is to what end? How can we use this?
Is that in your research, and is that qualitative work?
Qualitative in the sense that a database of over 800 scientific papers have been written and posted.
But is that demonstrating the two things exist simultaneously at the same time in two different locations?
Yes.
Well, this was mostly what had taken place with the research of Russell Targ and Elizabeth Rauscher. Even back in the 80s, they wrote this paper about beyond the speed of light. The whole idea of non-locality wasn't understood.
But that's been theoretical.
Yeah.
Has there been qualitative that has?
Well, actually, in terms of knowing and transferring information, this was done both in Switzerland as well as more recently with teleportation, how they can actually transfer atoms, like on the Canary Islands. With entanglement, they've been able to show that connection. So you send one atom that's been entangled to one of the islands of the Canary Islands, and the other one is on the place where you started, and then they put a third one instantaneously, without literally sending, but just having it. They found that third atom in that other island. So yes, there's been a lot of transfer, and as well as actually the Swiss Telecom did one of the first studies in Switzerland where they sent two atoms 15 kilometers apart.
So we've had the opportunity to work with the best scientists in Europe.
I was going to say,
besides Andrei Puharich and Russell Targ, I've had the opportunity to work with Marcel Vogel at IBM, where all of the study was done privately. And the database over the 45 years has been substantial. So to answer you, yes, there is a quantized information base that's very significant from the best minds in North America.
So the Swiss experiment, they sent an entangled two different photons 18 kilometers apart, and then when they analyzed, switching one spin up versus down, the other one reacted faster than the speed of light. So that shows us that quantum entanglement really exists. And we feel that the mind functions in the same way.
Well, I want to go into that more because that's the area that you cover in the book here, correct?
Yes, absolutely. And unique studies have been done also with other scientists in other parts of the world. We've been in touch with Russian scientists in Novosibirsk, and we co-authored a book with Dr. Trofimov and Krasnashea back in the early part of this 21st century, dealing with intelligent life in the universe. It's in German and Russian, but we are making this available in the English edition. So what we're saying to you is, in the past, everything's been up for grabs, and there's been a lot of theory, but we're interested in the pragmatic evidences.
Okay.
Who's done the research, what issues of credibility are there in terms of the publications in major journals. And we're looking at taking a conference like this and looking really at where we go from here and showing that we no longer have to debate theory. We have already the substance. We have the smoking gun.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
The question is, are we able to address the issues of international corporations, big business, international institutions, or the global commons with the idea, hey, we've got breakthroughs here, let's use it, or are we just going to passively sit by and let the next generation somehow stumble into this?
Would you say that those are answering the philosophical questions, like the applications?
Well, yeah, that's what's so interesting, because not only could you find your keys if you tune into your own remote viewing, which is practical
Car
for
keys.
everyone, car keys, but also, you can do things like they've worked with remote healing. This is something that has been studied, and it's the same process. You're actually making a change in this structure of something at a distance, even though you're not there. Now, one of the other things when you talk about prepare for change and climate change, which is very important, that we've worked in terms of sending hurricanes and other storms in other directions.
Okay.
So we're talking about the metaphor that you're using and modifying what we perceive
as the direction.
Weather fronts that can be looked at by a group of people, and somehow the psychic energy
can alter
and
course.
mitigate.
Yeah. So, I mean, these are things that really can be done, and we should all try to use it. I mean, obviously, maybe it doesn't work 100% of the time, but, this is something, we are not little nothings here, sitting here saying we can't do anything about everything that's taking place. If we're going to prepare for the change, we have to take an active role.
So there appears to be a global mind we're all connected with. And if we utilize the energy of the global mind as activists of positive change,
love that. Yep.
Just as our other colleague Bruce Lipton has shown how positive thinking influences the genetics of our body, we can modify certain situations and improve our situation.
Members of the Awakened community, prepare for change supporters and humanitarians alike. We desperately need your help and generosity more than ever. As regular listeners know, we proudly founded and finance an orphanage in Malawi, Africa, that relies on our community's efforts in their daily struggles. Please help us help them by giving a charitable donation today. Your donations will provide direct assistance to improve the lives of more than 530 orphans, infirms, and widows at our orphanage in Malawi. This assistance will change their lives for the better and help sustain them. Through love, care, and education, we strive to aid our orphans out of poverty and into abundance and freedom. We can only achieve these goals with your help. Prepare for Change supports over 530 needy at the orphanage, and their daily needs are dependent on us as an organization. We provide them with financial support on a weekly basis. The vision we have for our adopted orphanage is that we can raise enough funds to eventually cover all aspects of the children's welfare. This assistance includes healthcare, formal and informal education, food and security, suitable accommodations, and safe transportation. Please hear our calls and the children's calls for help at this crucial moment. It is only with your help that we can reach our goals. We are a 501c3 charity, so your donations are a tax write-off. To donate, please visit our website, prepareforchange.net, where you can do so in a variety of ways. You can find the donate button there or donate via PayPal directly to donations@prepareforchange.net. Your donations truly make a difference. Thank you.
Another aspect that we've shown in this book is we've been able to use distance or remote viewing and remote sensing to find archaeological places underground in Egypt, as well as the Far East, saving what we would call years of research from traditional approaches of simply doing penetration to subsurface levels through ground penetrating radar. We've been able to use, should we say, a mental radar or a mental remote viewing to see objects and go directly to the site, make the evaluation quickly, and thus, should we say, improve the state of the art very inexpensively and directly, with the courage of knowing that the mind has tremendous resources which we use only a small percentage of.
That's important.
So how do people learn this? And is this an ancient sort of wisdom or a gnosis?
Well, what's interesting, we actually work with the indigenous people of Brazil, and they actually use it all the time. But they sleep together, actually, some of them 20 in a hut, and they almost can get inside your brain. We've actually been, witness to that. So they naturally have that interconnectedness with everybody.
Maybe never lost it.
Yeah. And so, we have lost it here, of course, now, because the idea that we're all individuals. But the more and more we understand quantum physics, the more we realize, we're really more waves than we are particles, and at least we're both.
But you use the right word. You use the word gnosis. Gnosis is the ancient Greek word for knowledge that transcends the third dimension of the normal senses. Gnosis here would be a term that astronaut Mitchell, for example, when he's founded his Institute of Noetic Studies, was able to emphasize gnosis, the power of the mind or to acquire higher knowledge through alternative methods of science. And so using this, we can say, yes, some of the ancient societies definitely had seers, had mystics, had poets, scholars who had the ability to see more of life and the drama of life. We are coming out of industrial age now, where we need breakthroughs in science, psychology, sociology. We feel consciousness is a new field that's going to be highly beneficial.
That's so great to hear. Absolutely. Well, you said it's alternative methods of science.
Yeah.
The methods are consciousness. And it's wonderful the work that you're doing because you're quantifying and you're doing the academic study and you're collating a lot of research and collaborating with a lot of more out there type of metaphysical scientists, I guess, in the quantum space. So that's all new, amazing information. Do you think it's kind of I mentioned the 100th monkey, is it the time, is it the age, is it the dawning? Are you seeing this awakening in people?
I feel that from our travels and working with scientists in more than 30 countries, the constraints of the old scientific methods are forcing other people to look for better solutions. And hence they're changing their whole approach to scientific empiricism and looking for human-oriented science. And this is why we call ourselves futurists, because we believe the future will always be there. Science will be there, but it'll be a different type of science that is more holistic, more humanistic, more adaptable to a wider range of disciplines, not only the ones that we can define in terms of the sense from the time of Roger Bacon in the West, but really science that makes use of what we will call deeper spiritual insights personified by the great thinkers of the East and the Near East, and certainly the indigenous cultures, that in the absence of all of the shall we say, modern breakthroughs in wireless communication still have the ability of mind over matter.
Well, I want to comment on that because it's very, very, very important. This is one of my touchstone type of things. We have, you called it empiric science. Empiric science leads to the tangible material. Out of the material, science, human communications are becoming so digitized, so digital, that we're going down that path of AI, artificial intelligence. But I think what you're saying and what you're out there on the forefront of is the power of the mind. When you tap into higher consciousness, when you tap into this quantum, the mind, we don't really even know the potential of it. Few people are experiencing that. But I've always thought that you have to have a confidence in and of yourself, have that gnosis. And, we have to go out there and teach people this concept that you are more powerful than a supercomputer.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the things we actually have taught that at universities, showing AI, but then showing our own consciousness, which is something that really we don't feel that they can be, conscious robots.
In colleges, how do they receive that message?
Actually, I think they're starting to get it in a certain sense. But I also wanted to go back with the fact that Dr. Hurtak also wrote a second book with Russell Tarr called End of Suffering. And it uses the idea of remote viewing, but also in terms of our personal lives. Because if you understand that we're all interconnected, which is what it's showing, that we are in touch with each other, that we at the same time can, not feel that separation. Many people suffer because of the separation that we all experience. Now, in terms of AI, I think it's very important that, yes, we were just recently with Sophia, the robot. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her.
Handsome robot, the female that speaks beautifully on BBC.
And so, and actually we knew the people, or slightly know the people, that were actually trying to program her with love and compassion. It's not that easy, because it's not like you say, here's love, you're programmed with it now. I mean, you have to show all the aspects of love and how love works. So Hansen, to his credit, is trying to make these robots very compassionate, very understanding. But it was also pointed out that, one virus can change them back into, wiping that out. So there's something in our consciousness and also in our abilities. And I think when people see themselves as equal to robots, they don't even know who they are. We are so much more than that. And
So
that's
we
what we're
share
trying to develop.
with Elon Musk a certain apprehensive going too quickly into the robotization of our future.
Yeah, sure.
And if we simply put everything into the cloud, I think we miss out on the opportunity that we have these endowments of the power of the mind and spirit. Some would call it a new type of science. Some would call it a super science of the mind that would allow us to be in a win-win situation where we can use the tools of knowledge in Silicon Valley, California, but at the same time we can use our own endowments to keep, as it were, the sensible issues of the heart in love that we will not find in robots. In fact, there's a danger that was pointed out to me. One of my colleagues in the intelligence community said that the South Koreans had in certain parts of their military operation robots who could kill on command. And we know the Chinese are working on this. We know other nation states want to modernize armies of the future, but at the same time, at what expense? To dehumanize or to robotize, to make humans into cyber devices where they simply have microchips embedded in them to kill or feel situations where it overlooks the Renaissance, quote unquote, capability that we all have to create in the freedom of spirit and the knowledge and ennoblement of the human situation to grow through our own mistakes as well as our opportunities of a brave new world.
So many people ask, how do you remote view? Well, one of the things we tell people to do is before you look at your cell phone who's calling you, think of who that is. And you'll be able to start tuning in to predicting who's calling you. This happens, I think, amongst friends, especially family. You can often tell, I think that must be my sister, even though there's no reason my sister's calling me. So anyway, these are things you just need to start developing. And when you start developing it, you start trusting it. And then you can start using it. And you start sending that energy out to make changes on the planet on a positive way, we hope. It's really should.
Well, that's where I wanted to go and probably end up there. The future's bright. Perception's your reality, correct? So how do you see that track playing out? Can you give us a couple of things to look forward to?
I think the great programs that we have put in progress since the Apollo program to use our technical expertise and our psychological understanding of who we really are as humans that have universal capabilities allows us really to build civilizations in the new frontier of space. We will have exo-industrialization of factories in space using the free, non-polluted atmosphere of space. We'll have sociology of cities in space, whole new human relations of drawing from all cultures that are earth-based. We'll have even what some call exo or astral theology, recognizing amongst the wide diversity of life in the universe, we have to redefine the concept of a divine source or divine spark, that we're all interconnected and co-evolve with each other, or perhaps in the context of other cosmic civilizations, cosmic cultures. In 1995, I was privileged to speak at a conference convened in Washington, D.C., entitled "When Cosmic Cultures Meet." And this was chaired by Colonel Scott Jones, who worked with some of the top people, including former Senator Faborn Pell, in terms of bringing together the best minds, including members of the Rockefeller Foundation, to see whether there was any substantial evidence that we were not alone in the universe. The bottom line is, John Mack and myself showed evidence from the indigenous peoples in Africa to suggest that we were in contact as a human race with other levels of intelligence, and probable factors would be that some 25 years later, we would have evidence that we were not alone for real. This, of course, has played out recently with the U.S. Pentagon releasing information seen on CNN and referred to in the New York Times and Washington Post about events in 2004 with fast-flying elusive objects that were seen off the west coast of California.
Yeah, not far from here, close to Catalina
So
Island.
this suggests that we need a new cosmology. We need a new space program. We need something that gives people a sense of dignity and purpose rather than fear and subterfuge. And so, in the sense we're all humans of Earth, we need a humility. In the sense we're all from the stars, we need a sense of nobility. We need to have both aspects, that we are humans, but we are also capable of a transhuman future that can bring enormous rewards of the divine and the human together in partnership.
And I think it's important to also understand that we feel consciousness is not limited to the brain. That consciousness is more of a field that we all tap into. So our consciousness has a great potential, even beyond even planet Earth.
And so skeptics looking at our dialogue might be interested in this new book with Elizabeth Rauscher,
Or into
author of more
suffering.
than 400 scientific papers, or our work with Russell Targ, one of the foremost physicists with Stanford Research Institute, now retired.
Or our own book, Over Self-Awakening, which talks about our higher potential as well.
And the whole concept of using sacred geometry and using what I will call biophysical vibratory signals to reprogram ourselves, the type of biofeedback that's expanded. So we live in a fantastic opportunity of growth. Indeed, there are challenges, dangers out there, but we're here really to be the light, be the guidelines, and we thank you for the opportunity to
Well,
share.
thank you so much for that. You guys radiate, and the work that you're doing is improving the lives of humanity.
Keep up your good work, and all of you, this
Thank
is
you,
part of what I would call Homo Universalis, finding universal humanity in the heart and in the stars.
I'm going to keep picking up on astrotheology. I like that. That was great. So thank you. This was Desiree and JJ Hurtak.
Thank all of you.
Thank you.
Blessings. Thank you so much.
We hope you've enjoyed listening to our interview and found it informative. For further information, come and see prepareforchange.net. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.